very, very long-time friend, a neighbor, and a family. I know Rabbi Hexter. I'm embarrassed to say for quite some time. We used to be neighbors across the hall before he moved to Passaic. When we were in yeshiva together in Yisrael, so the Chavod, Leilui, Nishmat, Yisrael, Amichai ben Sara.
I hope you don't mind if I stand. I know the last couple of minutes was to sit, but I have a kabbalah from my father when you're speaking in front of the Chosh Tzibur that you stand. So I feel that it's appropriate to stand. I want to begin with sharing a story that I saw recently printed in one of Rabbi Krohn's books. When I read the story, I was a little surprised. So I decided to call the person involved in the story, which was Rabbi Yisrael Reisman, and to verify the details, and he told me that it is indeed correct, the facts in this story. He said that Rav Pam, Rosh Hashiva of Torah V'das, Sefer Tzadik L'Vrocha, once came to be Menachem Avol by the house of people that were sitting Shiva. And Rav Pam shared with them a story, a mashal. And he said that when he was a little child, he lived in the city of Salok, which his parents decided to send him to a yeshiva in the city of Kovna, in the city of Yeshiva Ateres Tzvi. And this yeshiva in Kovna was a distance away from his home. And he didn't frequent his home. And whenever his mother heard about a wagon driver that was traveling to Kovna, so his mother, Rabbi Tzimroch would go to the wagon driver and say, please do me a favor, stop by the yeshiva in Kovna where my son is learning, and please send him regards from me. And if she heard about this trip that the wagon driver was taking a couple of days in advance, she would take the opportunity to write a letter and send that letter with the wagon driver to her son. And if she heard about it 3 or 4 days in advance, she used the opportunity to bake a kugel and asked the wagon driver, do you mind stopping off in the yeshiva and delivering this kugel to my son? So Rav Pam said to the Avelim, he said the following. He said that when you say Kaddish, Leilui Nishmas, the Nifter, you are sending regards to him. And when you learn Torah, Leilui Nishmasai, L'schusai, that's like writing him a letter. And when you support Torah, that's like sending him a kugel. I feel that this gathering every month for this year, not only do we hear a Kaddish, and there's a Limud Torah, and there's a facilitating and encouraging others to come and participate in Limud Torah, not only are we sending regards to our good friend Yisrael Amichai, not only are we writing him a letter, but in a way we're sending him a big, big kugel. And the Mirz Hashem tonight, through our Limud Torah, will be a zechus for his neshama. And I saw also brought down not only a story, but the Sefer Pnei Baruch brings from the Yosef Aimetz. He says that Limud Torah helps 70 times Mikol HaTfilah, Ba'idei Zeh Machnisin L'Gan Eden. And through the Limud Torah, the neshama is nichnas L'Gan Eden. Halavai, that the small shir that I prepared will be that zechus. This past Shabbos was the first day of Pesach. Matzai Shabbos began the second day of Yontif. And we sat down to the Seder, and we started the Seder by making Kiddush. But we had a very unique opportunity. Not only did we make Kiddush, but we did something which is referred to as Yak Nahaz. Because Matzai Shabbos was the beginning of the second day of Yontif, we have to make Havdalah. we had to make Havdalah. So first, we made Bari Pri Agafen on the Yayin. Then we made Kiddush. We had Havdalah. We made a Bari Mari Aish on the Ner. And we made a Shechiyanu. Yakna has Zman Shechiyanu. The question that Taisvis and Psachim asks, Taisvis and Kuf Beis and Beis asks the question that on a regular Matzai Shabbos, we have Besamim. We make a Bari Minei Besamim. How come when Matzai Shabbos is Yontif, we don't make a Bari Minei Besamim? So Taisvis gives two answers. The first answer Taisvis says, he brings from the Rashbam, and he says that the reason we have Besamim on Matzai Shabbos, on a regular Shabbos, is because on Shabbos we have a Neshama Yisera. And when the Neshama Yisera leaves, there's a certain feeling of, the Neshama is leaving. Therefore, we need Besamim to be mechazik us, to encourage us. So, says the Rashbam, something very interesting. Says the Rashbam that on Yom Tif, we also have a Neshama Yisera. So therefore the Neshama Yisera of Shabbos is not leaving on Matzai Shabbos, and therefore there is no need for Besamim on Matzai Shabbos. Taisvis argues on the Rashbam, and he says, Rashbam, if you are correct that we have a Neshama Yisera on Yom Tif, then how come it is we know that after Yom Tif, we don't make a Bari Minei Besamim when Yom Tif is over? Because if we have a Neshama Yisera when Yom Tif is over and the Neshama Yisera leaves, we should make a bracha Bari Minei, we should make a Bari Minei Besamim. So therefore Taisus argues and says there's no Neshama Yisera on Yom Tif. So what's the reason? We're back to the question. So what's the reason then? If there's no Neshama Yisera, so then why don't we have Besamim this past Matzai Shabbos? So Taisus says that the Achila and the Shtia, the Suda, the eating, the drinking of Yom Tif takes the place of the Besamim, and therefore that comforts us and gives us chizuk. It takes the place of the Besamim that we normally would have on a regular Matzai Shabbos. That's what Taisvis says in Psachim Kuf Beis and Beis. But we still have the question: what does the Rashbam do with the question that Taisvis asked on him? The Rashbam that holds that we have an Neshama Yisera on Yom Tif, why don't we make Taka a Bari Minei Besamim after Yom Tif, when Yom Tif is over? So there's a fascinating Ramban, and if I recall correctly, the first time I heard this Ramban was from Rav Kolevsky when I was learning in Yisrael. And the Ramban, in his Sefer Emunah V'Betochen, the Ramban writes that the Neshama Yisera of Yom Tif is unique and different than the Neshama Yisera of Shabbos. The Neshama Yisera of Yom Tif never leaves. The Neshama Yisera of Yom Tif stays with us, and every Yom Tif we go through, we are becoming, so to say, more Kadosh. We have another Neshama, an additional Neshama, which remains with us. And because the Neshama Yisera of Yom Tif doesn't leave, therefore, the Ramban says, there's no need for Besamim Amatzoi Yom Tif. How should we understand this Ramban? Why is it? Why is it, Taka, that the Neshama Yisera of Yom Tif is unique and it doesn't leave? Shabbos Neshama Yisera leaves. Why shouldn't the Neshama Yisera of Yom Tif leave? Why does it remain with us? So in the Sefer Dvar Shmuel and Psachim, he brings from the Sfas Emes a very interesting answer. I'll read you the words. The Sfas Emes writes, the Yom Tif, Sheb Yisrael heim oisim es kedushas ha-Yom Tif. Yom Tif is different than Shabbos because Yom Tif, Klal Yisrael make the Yom Tif. The Yisrael kadshu l'zmanim. Im kein ha-neshama ha-yisera shaba v'ha-avoida ha-atzmis eino mistalekas. What the Sfas Emes is saying is that the Neshama Yisera of Shabbos comes every week. At the end of the week, the seventh day, from the beginning of creation, there's Kedusha Shabbos that's there whether we like it or not. However, Yom Tif, that Kedusha is totally on Bezdin. Klal Yisrael has to do something. Two Eidim have to come and tell us when they saw the new moon, if the previous month was a 29-day month or a 30-day month, and the Bezdin is Mekadesh L'Chaydesh accordingly. So when the Yom Tif will actually be on the calendar, Whether today was Tezvav Nisan or tomorrow's Tezvav Nisan, that's dependent on Bezdin. That's dependent on Klal Yisrael and the two Eidim. Something that we do and we put an effort into, that Kedusha, the Neshama Yisera that comes because of that which we put into, that stays forever. And this is something that I think we could compare it to the Kedusha of Har Sinai and the Kedusha to the Beis HaMikdash. We know Har Sinai, the Torah was given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. After Matan Torah, the Shekhinah left Har Sinai. Today there's no Kedusha on Har Sinai. There was once somebody who wanted to suggest that all Bar Mitzvah Bachrim should go to Har Sinai and have their Bar Mitzvah there. It's a wrong idea because there's no Kedusha there today. The Kedusha's gone. The Har Abayis, the Beis HaMikdash, even though it's Nechrav, David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash, Klal Yisrael brought down the Shekhinah, the Kedusha that we put effort into, that Kedusha stays forever and ever. And therefore the Neshama Yisera of Yontif is unique and special, according to the Ramban, to understand Taisvis, that the Neshama Yisera of Yontif, that Klal Yisrael and Mekadesh Yontif, the Neshama Yisera of Yontif stays. There's a very interesting Shaila in the Shaila Sechuvas B'Tzel HaChochma, which is a brother of the Debretziner Rav, and he has the following Shaila. We know that when there's a chasana, there's a week of Sheva Brachas after the chasana, and during Sheva Brachas there's a halacha called Panim Chadoshes. Panim Chadoshes means that we don't make the Sheva Brachas during a gathering that we have together with the Chassan and Kala, unless there's somebody who was not present at the Chasana or a previous Suda Sheva Brachas. And the simple reason is because when there's a new face there, a Panim Chadoshes, that adds Simcha, which allows us to make these new Brachas. He brings from the Sefer Kli Chemda that says that we know the halacha is regarding Sheva Brachas that on Shabbos, the Shulchan Aruch Paskins, on Shabbos as well as Yom Tif, we don't need Panim Chadoshes. When you have a Suda together with a Chassan and Kala during the first week, that counts as Panim Chadoshes, and you don't need to have extra special guests who weren't there by the Chasana or by the previous Sudas. What's the reason for that? Because Shabbos and Yom Tov counts as Panim Chadoshes. Says the Kli Chemda that the pshat in why Shabbos counts as Panim Chadoshes is because since on Shabbos we have a Neshama Yisera, therefore it's like we have Panim Chadoshes. When Shabbos comes, it's different people that were there by the Chasana than are by the Suda. We have a Neshama Yisera. So the Neshama Yisera of Shabbos is here. It's new people, new Neshama, and therefore we don't need to have extra guests and we can make the bracha. So the B'Tzal HaChachma asks on the Kli Chemda, he says, according to Taisvis, that holds that on Yom Tiv there is no Neshama Yisera, right? We were discussing before the Rashbam, that says there is a Neshama Yisera on Yom Tiv. But according to Taisvis that says there's no Neshama Yisera on Yom Tiv, so according to Taisvis' opinion, with the Kli Chemda's understanding, we should have to have, right, special Panim Chadoshes even on Yom Tiv, which the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say. So the B'Tzal HaChachma gives an answer, and he wants to say that Sifrei Kabbalah say that the Neshama Yisera of Yom Tiv is on a lower level than the Neshama Yisera of Shabbos. And therefore he wants to say that Efshar Taisvis, who holds there's no Neshama Yisera on Yom Tiv, doesn't really mean that there's no Neshama Yisera at all. He means that there's no Neshama Yisera on the level of the Neshama Yisera on Shabbos, and but it helps as Panim Chadoshes, and therefore you don't need actually new faces. But on the other hand, at the end of Yom Tov, when the Neshama Yisera leaves, since it's on a lower level, you don't need Besamim. That's his answer. It bothers me a little bit, I have a question on it, that if it's true that Taisvis holds that there is a Neshama Yisera, it's just on a lower level, I would have preferred that Tosfos says, I agree with the Rashbam that there is a Neshama Yisera, it's just on a lower level. From the simple reading of Tosfos, it sounds like Tosfos holds there is no Neshama Yisera on Yom Tov. Secondly, if the Kli Chemda, getting back to the Kli Chemda's explanation, the Kli Chemda explained the reason why Shabbos counts as Panim Chadoshes is because there's a Neshama Yisera, and for the Neshama Yisera that's here, that's why you don't need to have actual new people, because the Neshama Yisera is the new person. So that should only help for the first Suda on Shabbos. The second Suda on Shabbos, right, or the other Sudas that we may have, so then you already have the same person, even though it's a Neshama Yisera, you have he's there again, you should have to have other guests, and we don't find that chiluk. So I was thinking to answer perhaps this question a little differently. The Aruch HaShulchan in the Halachos of Sheva Brachos says a little bit of a different hesber why it is that when Shabbos falls out during Sheva Brachos, we don't need to have Panim Chadoshes. The Aruch HaShulchan writes that when we have other people come to a Suda Sheva Brachos, so we're marbe, we increase the Suda, we make more food in honor of those people that are coming. And even if we don't actually make more food, but there are people who are right to make more food. And because of that, that increases the simcha, increases the joy. And that's why we would make extra brachos, we would make the Sheva Brachos when the chassan and kala come. On Shabbos, he says, because there's an Neshama Yisera, therefore, we're going to be marbe besuda. We're going to increase the suda that we have. And because it's the derech, laharbais simcha, to have more food when there's Shabbos, therefore that counts as Panim Chadoshes. It does the same thing as other Panim Chadoshes would do during the week. And Memela, for that reason, we will be able to make the Sheva Brachos on Shabbos. And with this, Aruch HaShulchan explains why by Shalosh Shudas, the halacha is that if you have a chassan and kala by Shalosh Shudas, you do need Panim Chadoshes, or you need some Divrei Torah to be said, because Shalosh Shudas, most people, he says, don't have a riboy of food by Shalosh Shudas. It's just to be yoytz of the inyan of having 3 Sudas on Shabbos, and therefore the food of Shalosh Shudas won't count in the place of the Panim Chadoshes. As well, he says, on Yom Tov, the halacha that you don't need Panim Chadoshes is only by the first 2 days of Yom Tov. Chol HaMoyed, you would have to have Panim Chadoshes. That is because the meals that we have on Shabbos, there's much more of a riboy suda the first 2 meals than there is on Chol HaMoyed. Therefore, the riboy simcha could only be found by the first 2 days as opposed to on Chol HaMoyed. So perhaps we could say that even if Tosfos, like Tosfos says, that there's no Neshama Yisera on Yom Tov, but still, we still marbe besuda, we still, because of Kavod Yom Tov, we have more achila and shtia, and we have more of a kavod of Yom Tov, Memela, that would suffice to count as Panim Chadoshes, and there would not be a need to have special Panim Chadoshes, and we could still make the Sheva Brachos. I just want to conclude with an interesting machlokes, Harishonim, in what is the purpose of the Neshama Yisera on Shabbos? What does the Neshama Yisera do? Why was the Neshama Yisera, why do we receive a Neshama Yisera on Shabbos? Or for that matter, perhaps on Yom Tov. The makar that we have in Neshama Yisera on Shabbos is a Gemara in Masechtas Beya. The Gemara says, on the Haftazayin, the Gemara says, Amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Neshama Yisera noisin HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'adam erev Shabbos. Neshama Yisera Hashem gives to a person on erev Shabbos. U'lamatzoi Shabbos, and when Shabbos leaves, noitlin Oisah Menu. The Neshama Yisera leaves us. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Shavas v'nofash, Kivan sheshavas, vay of the nefesh, woe is to us, the nefesh leaves. That's the makar, that's the Gemara. Rashi over here says something very interesting with Many other Rishonim go with this pshat too. What does the Neshama Yisera do? Says Rashi, Roichiv leiv lemenucha v'lesimcha, v'liyos pasuach revacha, v'yoichal v'yishta, v'ein nafshay kotza alav. Rashi learns that it gives a person the ability to eat a little more on Shabbos, because it's Shabbos, and a person's not chutzpah, it won't bother him so much. Perhaps during the week will be considered like I fill up much easier. Shabbos, the Neshama Yisera gives us the ability to eat a little more l'chvei Shabbos. Ve'elei chutzpah. The Shita Mekubetzes in Beya and the Shloah HaKadosh in Masechta Sukkah say a different pshat. That the pshat in Neshama Yisera, why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Neshama Yisera, is the opposite as Rashi. It's not to help us to eat and be Mechabit Shabbos and Yontif through Achila and Shtia. But rather the pshat in the Neshama Yisera is to give us the ability to be ma'ayin more into Torah and to Ma'aseh Hashem. The Shita says, Pirish, V'alzeh chala olav shefa eleki. With the Neshama Yisera, it is, we receive a shefa eleki, v'seichel yoiser, a greater intelligence, la'asoik b'Torah v'la'ayin b'Ma'aseh Hashem. That through the Neshama Yisera that we receive on Shabbos, we're given the ability to be ma'ayin into Torah and to understand better Ma'aseh Hashem. The Shloah HaKadosh explains this a little deeper. He says that a person is made up of guf and neshama. Guf is achila and shtia. Neshama he calls, the neshama is nana and is involved in dvar muskalim, things of the seichel, Torah, Yerushalayim, Musar, Midos. He says normally there's an equal balance, but on Shabbos it becomes unbalanced. It's 2 against 1. There's 2 neshamas and 1 guf. So he says Hashem did that because on Shabbos is a zman. Shabbos Kodesh is a zman which is mesugel to be ma'ayin into dvarim muskalim. Shabbos is a time to learn Torah. Shabbos is a time to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore Hashem gave us the Neshama Yisera to make it easier for us to be ma'ayin into Limud Torah on this holy day of Shabbos. And he explains that the Gemara says, Vai of the Nefesh. When Mitzvah Shabbos leaves, Vai, woe is to us, the Neshama is leaving. He says that refers to a person who didn't spend his time on Shabbos learning extra, talking about Yerushalayim and Musar, Mayin to Ma'aseh Hashem. Vai of the Nefesh, he wasted that opportunity of the Nefesh. One of my children just showed me a story. Rabbi Nosson Tzvi Finkel Zatzal, the Rosh Hashiva of the Mir, that after the Suda he used to have a chavrusa on Shabbos. And the chavrusa came, and the chavrusa was tired from after the Suda, and the chavrusa started dozing off, and Rabbi Nosson Tzvi was going strong, and he said to Rabbi Nosson Tzvi, he said, how come you're able to do it? Right? So Rabbi Nosson Tzvi said to him, he said, on Shabbos I have a neshama, extra neshama. It's only with me for 25 hours. Right? I don't want it to come back up and say, I spend Shabbos eating, drinking, and sleeping, and that's it. So Rabbi Nosson Tzvi was able to push himself. So we're able to tap in, to realize that on Shabbos we have this kayach of the Neshama Yisera. One last point. Is the Neshama Yisera something that we could feel? Is the Neshama Yisera something that we could actually be margish? Is that something that our guf could be margish? So this also seems to be a machlokes. The Ramban in Parshas Bereishis, as well as the Ramchal in Derech Hashem, seem to say that this is something that the guf can't be margish. A person can't feel it. The Ramchal writes the Lashon, he says it comes to us at the beginning of Shabbos, it leaves in the end of the Shabbos, but he says this is not nirgoshim leguf. The guf can't feel it. On the other hand, the Chai Adam and Rav Dessler brings from the Alter from Kelm, he says that the Kedusha of Shabbos, the Neshama Yisera, is tangible. And he says that a person should be able to feel it and tap into it and be makir, the Kedusha that there is, the Neshama Yisera that we have. And there have been stories of Gedolim that their face was different, the Nicker on Shabbos, that they received that Kedusha Yisera. I think if one of us don't feel that feeling, I don't think we should feel bad. We have what to rely on, the Ramban and the Ramchal. just want to say a few divrei zikaron. My good friend Yisrael Amichai. You know, every month for the last 9-10 months we've been getting together, and we've chazered over some of the wonderful mailos that Amichai had. Some chazered over the maila that he had in his Ben Adam Lechaveiroi, how he cared, was dedicated and concerned about every Jew, young or old, tried to help them, tried to mechazik them, all different types of scenarios and situations. Some spoke about his Ben Adam L'Makayim. Amichai was known for his tefillah, and I had the zchus to see how much he loved to learn Torah. But I just want to point out one nekuda, which perhaps was not mentioned till now. And that was that to Amichai, his number one priority was his children. There wasn't anything that he didn't feel that would enhance his children's ruchnius or gashmius that he didn't put all his kaiches into. I'll tell you, a couple months ago we all live busy lives. A couple months ago I was busy taking care of something when one of my younger children needed my attention. And I was torn. I needed to take care of this, and he wanted my attention. And I forced myself. And I thought to myself, Amichai was dedicated to his children. I thought to myself, this is a zchus for him. And I pulled myself away and tried to give that time to my son. I think that's a lesson for all of us. And the limud HaTorah, and the tefillah, and the Ben Adam L'Chaveiroi, and the way we are involved with our children should be a zechus for his neshama. We should continue only sharing in simchis together. Amen. Amen.